In this video, we're going to talk about how to factor a trinomial, factor something with 3 terms. Just a reminder, factoring is the process of rewriting a polynomial as a product of 2 or more polynomials called factors. So you're rewriting an expression so that everything is a multiplication problem. Let's dive into an example. We're going to factor 3x squared plus 8x plus 5. First, determine if there's a greatest common factor already. There is not, so we go to the number of terms. There are less than 4 terms, so we're going to go to step 3. We're going to call this the AC method. You're going to find 2 integers whose sum is b and whose product is a times c. So b is 8 and AC is 15. That's 3 times 5. Remember, this is A, B, and C. So we multiply those two together. We need to find 2 numbers who add to get 8 and who multiply to get 15. And we're going to rewrite 8x using those magic numbers. I think it's really helpful to create a little chart to help you organize your thoughts. So we're going to call these magic numbers P and Q. And we want to pick all the numbers that multiply to get 15 because there's a lot less numbers that multiply to get 15 than add to get 8. So you want to start with what multiplies to get 15. Well, that would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. And a little word about the signs here. Because both of these are positive, both of these are going to be positive. Okay? And then we add them to see which ones give us 8. So 1 plus 5 is 16 and 3 plus 5 is, woohoo, 8. Okay, so those are our magic numbers, 3 and 5. So we're going to rewrite the middle term using those magic numbers. So we're going to break this up into 3x and 5x. Does it matter if you do 5x and 3x? It does not matter. I just really like putting the 3's together and the 5's together because now we're ready to group. We know how to do factor by grouping. We're going to group these 2 together and these 2 together. And if you pick the right magic numbers, there's going to be a GCF. They both have 3x in common, leaving me with 1x here. And what's left here? When I take 3x divided by 3x, 3 divided by 3, x divided by x is 1. Don't put 0. The only time there's zeros is if zero's on the top. These both have a 5 in common. And I divide both of them by 5. Ha! If you did it right, like what was that noise? That was my excited noise because they both have x plus 1. If you don't get x plus 1 here, go back to your magic numbers and make sure that they multiply to get a times c. So you got to multiply those together. They have to multiply to get 15 and add to get 8. And then make sure that you pulled out the correct greatest common factor from both of these. Okay, so now we're going to factor out the common binomial. They both have x plus 1 in common. Each of those terms does. And that leaves me with 3x in this term and 5 in this term. And it's factored. And you can distribute it back up to check to make sure that it does give you 3x squared plus 8x plus 5. And I'm going to leave that for you to do. I'm going to show you how to do the same thing with algebra tiles. So you start with, this is in the box, and we're going to undo the multiplication. So I need 3x squareds, and then I need 8x's. And the goal is to make a rectangle, which I'm kind of cheating because I already knew I had to have 8x, and I already turned some so that it would make a rectangle, and then I have to have 5. But you want to make a rectangle out of what you have. So you'll have to play around with it a little bit, figure out what, how to arrange these things so that they make a rectangle. And then you do the greatest common factor like we just did. So what these have in common is an x, and then these all have a 1 in common, and then these have an x in common, and these have an x in common, and these have an x in common, and then these have a 1. And I make this look really, really easy I made that look really, really easy, but it can be a lot more complicated, especially if you have minus here. It gets a little bit more complicated to do these. But you can see you get the same answer. We have 3x on the top plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the right side, we have x plus 1. And that's the same answer that we got on the last one. Let's do another example. This time we have a minus in here, so the signs are going to be a concern. We don't have a GCF, so I'm going to skip right over that. Number of terms, there are less than 4, so we're going to go to the AC method. Find two numbers whose sum is b and whose product is 18. So you might want to do up here, make a note for yourself. I want them to add to get negative 11 and multiply to get 18. You can also create that little chart to help you keep track of your work. Now, I want it to multiply to get to a positive, but it's going to add to get a negative. So I already know that the only way that can happen is if they're both negative. The only way I can get a positive number is if both of these are positive or if both of these are negative. And since it's going to add to get a negative, they should both be negative. Now I'm going to come up with all the things that multiply to get 18. So negative 1 and 18, negative 2 and negative 9, negative 3 and negative 6, and I believe that's it. And then I'm going to add them together. So that's negative 19, negative 11. That's what I wanted, right? Those are my magic numbers. I wanted the pair that gives me negative 11 when I add them. So I got these numbers by figuring out what multiplies to get 18. And then I add them together to find my magic number that also adds to get negative 11. Now I've done this step. Now I rewrite the middle term using the magic numbers. So 6x squared minus 2x minus 9x plus 3. Done. Negative 11 is negative 2 and negative 9. Then I'm going to group. I'm going to cheat, but I'm going to put a plus there to remind me that it's not factored yet. All I did was group these two together. Now I'm going to factor out the GCF from each binomial. So these two have a 2x in common, leaving me with 3x. And then remember, if I divide by 2x, that's going to be a 1. Now I'm thinking ahead, and I want this one to be 3x minus 1 so that it matches that one. So how do I turn this to a minus? And that's if I pull out a negative 3. They both have a 3 in common, and then if I pull out a negative 1, that'll leave me with a minus here so that these match, because that's the next thing, is that they have to have a common binomial. So you got to think ahead a little bit. This is problem solving. This is critical thinking. Are you going to do that in your life? Before you take a step, you have to look forward to the third step or the fourth step in your life and think, what's going to be the consequence? If I do this, what's going to be the consequence for step 3, 4, and 5? Yes, that's what we're practicing here. If I do this, is it going to get me closer to my goal? Yeah. If I factor out a plus, that's not going to get me closer to my goal. Think about your goals in life. Make steps that take you closer to your goals, not further away. That's your life lesson. All right. We have 3x minus 1 in each term. That was free, by the way. You can tip your waiter on the way out. We have 2x minus 3 left of each term. All done. I'll leave you to distribute to check on your own.